This episode of the Jesse Blake Sports Report is brought to you by papersnaildesigns.com. That's papersnaildesigns.com. And yes, I did say snail because the logo for Paper Snail merch is a snail. It's a cute little snail. And I got to tell you about Paper Snail Designs. It's a company started by Jasmine Hall out of Calgary, Alberta. And it's a way for Jasmine, who's a graphic designer, to showcase our art. She's decided to do it through clothing. And they sell t-shirts, hoodies, snapbacks, and some of their designs also come in little cute stickers. And the Paper Snail designs, if you haven't seen them places, just check them out. They're these adorable little snails, and they come in super comfy hoodies and t-shirts. And as a graphic designer, Jasmine just wants an outlet for people to see her different designs as she works her way through the industry. And what better way to do it than sharing snug clothing through an adorable snail? So go to papersnaildesigns.com and use the code SDPN. You'll get 15% off of your order. That's papersnaildesigns.com. 15% off of your order with the code SDPN. Check it out.
The Jesse Blake Sports Report with Jesse Blake.
All signs point to Steven Stamkos, captain of the Tampa Bay Lightning, the greatest player in their franchise's history, not by pure counting numbers, but by reverence and his importance to the organization, will become a free agent on Monday, and the team will not re-sign him. That's where we're standing right now. Because according to Pierre LeBrun of The Athletic and TSN, he tweeted this today on Friday before the draft. From Stamkos' agent, Don Meehan, who tells me regarding his client, he will be a free agent on July 1. He continues, would appear Stamkos is going to market Monday unless something changes in Tampa's position. So that's what Pierre's reporting right now. His agent, Don Meehan, Steven Stamkos' agent, Don Meehan, is saying Stamkos is going to be a free agent unless Julien BriseBois, the general manager of the Tampa Bay Lightning, comes to the table with something significant. And earlier, before that, Gabby Shirley of Bally Sports Florida, reporter for the Tampa Bay Lightning, tweeted this. The Bolts GM, Julien BriseBois, spoke to the media over Zoom this morning. And the first question he was asked was focused on the future of the Bolts captain, Steven Stamkos. As we stand here right now, we haven't been able to reach an agreement yet. I don't know if we will be able to reach an agreement, but we met with Steven's agent again yesterday, and both sides are still interested in getting a deal done. But we have not been able to agree to terms that are satisfactory for both sides. I think at this time, it's probably best if I leave my comments to that for that time being. Both of these parties, Julien BriseBois, general manager, and Steven Stamkos' agent, Don Meehan, are negotiating through the media, clearly. They're speaking publicly on this issue, saying that, hey, we're negotiating, but neither side has come to the table with something agreeable. And I, for one, am shocked that we've reached this point. Even though the last time Steven Stamkos was up for free agency, this is what happened. He took it all the way to free agency, and then when he got to the moment where he's eligible to sign with other teams, he signed back in Tampa. And if you remember back then, the Leafs were very in on Stamkos, and it was a big thing, and we thought the Leafs might get him. They might be in on it, and then he just said, okay, I'm going to go back to Tampa. But this time, I don't know if you feel this, but I feel like it feels more real. It feels like they've reached the point where they're looking to retool, and Stamkos isn't the player he was back then, but he's still a very good player. But it feels like Julien BriseBois really could walk away from Steven Stamkos and the captain, the greatest player in the Tampa Bay Lightning's history. I'm shocked that from a personal standpoint, you don't just say to this gentleman, here it is. Blank check that's good for both of us. It's decent. It's probably a little more in your favor, but for everything you've done here, 2 Stanley Cups, 3 trips to the Stanley Cup final, captaincy for all of these years, here you go. Remain a Tampa Bay Lightning. We can't replace that. We can replace maybe your production if we go out and we trade for somebody, Mitch Marner, we sign Jake Gensel, we trade for Marty Necas, who knows? But we can't replace the human being of Steven Stamkos. And I'm shocked that, because so often in pro sports, and especially in hockey, you see this. You see the guy who's been around forever, you get the deal. will agree that, hey, this probably isn't the 100% best hockey fit, but it's 90% there, and the 10% is for the personality and the person himself remaining on this team. And I'm shocked that the Tampa Bay Lightning do not see it like that. But we must leave open the door that this is exactly like last time in Steven Stamkos' UFA journey many moons ago. That we get to July 1st, both parties here who are negotiating through the media and clearly very stuck in their positions come to an agreement on July 1st. Like that could, the next 48 hours, I could be sitting here again, being like, you know what? I made that whole video about Steven Stamkos and where he could possibly land on July 1st. And it's all mute because he's going back to Tampa. So let's explore the possibility that Steven Stamkos and Julien BriseBois part ways and Steven Stamkos decides to go somewhere else. Because there's a couple of very interesting destinations where Stamkos could land. For me, the most interesting one, and I asked you this question on Twitter, I'm going to get to some of your answers. The most interesting one for me is the Boston Bruins, because the Boston Bruins need center depth. And Stamkos has played a lot of wing in his time in Tampa because they can clog up the middle, so he doesn't have to play so much center. But if you throw him out as a centerman to the Boston Bruins, I think it makes sense. Other destinations that you guys threw out, obviously, we got the answers of the Toronto Maple Leafs, but they would have to do a lot of cap gymnastics to get that done, including a Mitch Marner trade. Everything revolves around a Mitch Marner trade. We got this one from @Leafs250, who did not throw out the Leafs. I know Utah is the first team linked to anyone, but tell me Stamkos and Ekblad don't make a ton of sense for them. Short on term and high AAV to lead the room and provide a transitional foundation for their younger guys to build on. Utah is fascinating this offseason because I don't think there's ever been a team in history in the position that Utah was in. Under the ownership of Alex Morello, the Arizona Coyotes did not compete. They were not trying to field a competitive hockey club. They were trying to just gather assets and dump salary. And that now that the Smith Group has inherited this roster that's bare and very under the salary cap, they have so much room to play with. And a competitive team with a good foundation with so much salary cap is a crazy luxury. So they can do something very interesting like this and go buy great players like Steven Stamkos. So watch out for Utah. I 100% agree with that one. We had a Boston take here. This was from @_Papa Mitch. Could Boston take a swing at Stamkos and Elias Lindholm? Would fix their holes at center real quick. I agree with that one. I think it would be a perfect retool for Boston. You keep your competitive window open. We also got from @Davis_08. I hate to say it, but Boston. @72 Easton says DET. Yes, how could we not mention Detroit? The ties are obvious. Steve Yzerman, the general manager of the Detroit Red Wings, it was the former and longtime GM of the Tampa Bay Lightning. He knows Steven Stamkos very well. And maybe Yzerman knows something that we don't, because he made this weird trade where he sent Jake Wallman to the San Jose Sharks with a second round pick just to free up cap space. Now, that trade I don't think is excusable. Like, I think it's inexcusable. You shouldn't be doing that when you could just waive Wallman and somebody will pick him up and you don't have to send that pick. But Yzerman could have known that there's a strong possibility he will have a shot at Steven Stamkos on July 1st. And Stamkos will fit perfectly on the Red Wings roster. He is that vet piece in the forward group that they need. And I think if he gets to Detroit and they have a chance to sign him, they need to go after him. And I think they will. I think they'll go after him strong. And I feel like he'd be a perfect landing spot in Detroit. And that's a team that was in the playoffs for most of the year. And then at the end of the season, they fell off a cliff because a number of reasons, goaltending, and their scoring disappeared and injuries really hit them. And when you have Steven Stamkos, and if it's a stable Steven Stamkos putting up the same amount of points he put up last year, imagining that on Detroit, they probably hold fort and they make the playoffs. So Stamkos could be the last piece to make this team a serious playoff contender. I think Detroit's a very good option for Steven Stamkos. At Caden_Toombs87 saying this has Dubas written all over it. I think Dubas isn't in the game of getting another vet. I don't know if that makes sense at all. I guess he'd play on the wing. Like if you play on Malkin's wing, it would be the best fit there in Pittsburgh. But I don't know how Dubas could finesse that. I don't think he's going to Pittsburgh. One last team I want to throw out there, the Montreal Canadiens. If the Montreal Canadiens think their window to actually be good is a little sooner than some of the projections, like I don't think they expected to make the playoffs this coming season or anything. It's probably like 2 years away, not this season, but next season. But like even then, maybe you take the flyer on Steven Stamkos. You actually try and gather current talent and not like because they're in the business of getting young talent right now. The Montreal Canadiens are, and maybe you get the established talent Steven Stamkos, and that elevates your roster and all of these young guys to a point where hey, our competitive window is like now we can actually do some other deals. This might be a finishing, like not a finishing touch, but one of the central building blocks for the Habs to be competitive again. So the Habs also a team to watch out for if Stamkos does indeed hit the UFA market, but he could just always go back to Tampa. That's it for me right now. I will see you here shortly. I got to talk about should the Jays trade Bo Bichette at the deadline. We're going to get that because of his comments in the last 24 hours to Hazel May about, hey, I wouldn't be shocked if I was traded. So we'll get to that video. It's coming out soon. But we have a draft live stream tonight on the SDPN YouTube channel. Make sure you watch that. It kicks off at 6:55 ahead of the 7 p.m. Eastern NHL draft start. We will be live on YouTube, the Steve Dangle podcast. So watch that tonight. It's going to be a good live stream. I will see you there. Maybe I'll see you again here today. Who knows? There's so much news. So much is happening. Everything is on the move in the NHL. What a fun time to be a hockey fan. Thank you for being here. Could be anywhere in the world. Because you're listening to this right now, and I appreciate you. Take care.
That is how it's done.
Bye.
The Jesse Blake Sports Report with Jesse Blake.
Jesse Blake, the guy that likes to hear his name twice in one sentence. Sure, I know him. No, he doesn't have an ego at all.